Well, there's three stages to manhood. There's the boy, there's the man, and there's a spiritual father. The boy is about everybody taking care of him. And he will do anything to avoid suffering, anything. He doesn't want to scab his knees. He doesn't want to suffer at all. So everybody's taking care of him. So he's like the tricycle or the bicycle with the training wheels. He has to stay stable because if he scabs his knees, it's over. The man, he's the one who begins to learn responsibility for himself. He goes to school. He works hard so he can earn money. He actually will suffer, but it's so that he can get ahead, right? And so he's like the ATV. He's like the four-wheeler, right? He's having fun. He's responsible for himself. He can make the car payment on that or whatever. Yeah. But then the man who becomes a spiritual father, he's like the 53-foot semi. And he's the one who learns to suffer not just for himself, but he embraces responsibility and is willing to suffer for others. Why? Because he needs that semi-trailer to haul everybody to heaven. He's responsible for the temporal well-being and the spiritual well-being of his wife, of his children, of his friends, of the people around him. He takes that responsibility seriously. So that's St. Joseph. St. Joseph, though he was the least perfect member of the Holy Family, I mean, he got Mary full of grace, and then Jesus full of grace and truth, and then you got St. Joseph who's called to lead. The point is that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. He calls all of us who are just regular fishermen to actually become saints and lead our families, get that semi-trailer hooked up, lead the people around us, and get them to heaven. And how does it happen? It's not by the loud and proud. It's by the silent, heroic witness of self-sacrifice, especially in fatherhood, spiritual fatherhood, to be able to die to oneself, to be able to impart life to another.
Yeah, and what humility he must have had to learn that. I mean, anything goes wrong in the Holy Family, everybody else is like, oh, I know where that God came from. And
yeah.
Like that God, okay, yeah. God, let me see who you're calling me to lead. Okay, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, and then in the hierarchy of the holiness of beings in the universe, I'm dealing with the Son of Man and the Virgin Mary, who's number 4 on the list of the holiest, and I'm supposed to lead them. It's a little reassurance that you don't have to be the holiest person in the family to lead them. You know?
No. But I think Joseph, if we could put 3 words in his mouth that were probably there all the time, okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's okay, I'm wrong. But I think it's great, though, when you look at this, is that what is God saying? He's saying, I mean, when we look at the Holy Family is the archetype or the model for all families. So what's he saying? Hey, dads, if you think that you don't have what it takes to be holy, or if you don't think you have what it takes to lead your family to salvation, it doesn't matter. I'm going to equip you. I'm going to empower you. Because this is the amazing thing. You read the scriptures about St. Joseph. After the Annunciation, none of the divine revelation or divine guidance for the Holy Family came to anyone else except for St. Joseph. He was always the one who was told what to do. And that shows Mary's humility. Mary let Joseph lead. And I think that that's super important for this day and age when fatherhood is, basically the world makes us ashamed of it. Yeah. And we tend to be ashamed of ourselves and of our own masculine power. And women have, want to look to men for them to lead. But a lot of times I think our women are like, well, you're not leading, so I'll just do it myself. Yeah. Rather than helping her husband lead, like Mary helped Joseph lead.
Yeah. And I would imagine, the amount of suffering he went through and being unable to care for the Holy Family as he probably would have wanted to, starting from Bethlehem. Like, this is not how I envision my wife's delivery room. I wanted to get so much more for her and then go to Egypt. It's like, I don't know anybody in Egypt. I have a job back in Nazareth, and now I've got to start up shop in a country I don't know, with people I don't know, to provide for this new family all by myself. And then they go to visit the temple. He loses God. He physically misplaces the second person of the Blessed Trinity. It's like, okay, Joseph, you're in charge of the redemption of humanity. Where did I put that kid? I could have sworn he was with us. So he probably felt like he was kind of blowing it every turn, but the humility.
But see, that's the key for St. Joseph and for us. So the proof of sonship is trust in God. And the proof of trust is detachment. So Joseph continually has to detach himself from what he wanted in the situation, whether it was, in a sense, when he met Mary, I'm sure he agreed to a virginal vow, and so, okay, I'll give that up, and then pretty soon she's pregnant without his cooperation. Okay, I'll give up my honor, I'll give up my involvement in this. He puts her away privately. And then he's got to go to Bethlehem. And like you said, there's no room for them in the inn. And time after time, he's constantly having to practice detachment. And see, this is the key for us. We hold on to everything. We attach ourselves to everything. And that's actually how God attracts us, is he gives us gifts. And through those gifts, he calls us to himself to see that he's the giver of all the gifts. His generosity, he's a generous father. But when he starts to see that he's perfecting us, he's growing us, then he begins to remove the gifts little by little so that we can love. Because what happens is we get attached to the gift rather than the giver. We worship the gift rather than the giver. And so what happens is he wants to start taking a little bit away so that we can actually love the giver above the gift. Yeah. And so, because the problem is that most of us commit idolatry on a daily basis because we're so afraid of losing the gift rather than losing the giver, which is God. But Joseph wasn't like that. Joseph was willing to lose everything at all costs for the sake of God's will. That's amazing, sacrificial. And the word sacrifice comes from the two Latin words, sacer and facere. Sacer is sacred, facere is to make. So St. Joseph made himself a holy and living sacrifice unto the Lord, like Romans 12 says. He set himself aside, detached himself from his own will to become sacred unto the Lord. Yeah, amazing.
And as you talk, I've been thinking, like, it never ended. I mean, even on his deathbed, you could imagine at the end of his earthly life, like, now I'm leaving my bride and with an only child who I know is destined to make a sacrifice of his own life. And then my wife is going to be a widower without even a child to care for her. And me as the protector and provider, I'm not even going to be in the picture. And
so
in the end, he had to detach.
Oh, yeah. And that links us back to Simeon's prophecy, where they bring the child Jesus at 8 days old to the temple. Well, actually, it was 40 days later after her purification. And he says to Mary, he says, "And you, a sword of sorrow will pierce your heart, that the thoughts of men may be made known." And Joseph, upon hearing those words, had to be like, whoa, wait a minute. I can't protect her? I'm not going to be there to protect her from this sword? Where's this sorrow going to come from? And he had, over time, he had to start putting it together is, wait a minute, I'm called to be the protector, but ultimately I have to leave my wife and my child in God's hands. And that's the beautiful thing about St. Joseph, is that he was a king. He was a son of David. That's what it says in scriptures. Therefore, if he was alive, well, Jesus couldn't assume his kingship. Therefore, Jesus couldn't sacrifice himself on behalf of us. Joseph would have. If Jesus was alive, Joseph would have done that because he was the true king of Israel. So the point is that Joseph, from now on, I must decrease, Jesus must increase. And that's the way it's got to be in all of our lives. We have to begin to detach from our own longing for honor, vain ambitions, even pleasure. These things that God gives us, in a sense, not the vain ambitions, but he gives us a lot of goodness. But we need to learn to detach from our own selfish wants and decrease so that God can increase in us. And when God increases in us, this is a beautiful thing about God. God will never be outdone in generosity. Glorify God, and he cannot help but to glorify you. And that's where we derive our greatest joy.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, but if you want to see the whole episode where this came from, just click the link here. And in the meantime, we want to invite you to help us share this message, and there's a couple things you can do real quick. Number one, if you like or comment or share this video, YouTube will actually show it to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We release videos every single day, and you'll be notified as soon as those come out. If you want to help us also to spread this message, you can support us at patreon.com/Jason Everett. That helps us to create these videos and show them to the whole world. God bless.